Welcome to the Happy Black Woman Podcast, where we're on a mission to empower women to transform their lives through personal development and entrepreneurship. We bring you all the information, inspiration, and motivation you need to create a life of happiness, success, and freedom. Now, please welcome your host, the happy Black woman herself, Rosetta Thurman.
Hello, ladies, and welcome back to the Happy Black Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rosetta Thurman, and today we have a super special guest. I say super special because I know so many of you have read her books and listened to her audio programs and following her on social media, maybe even attended some of her events. Our guest today is Debrena Jackson Gandy. Welcome, Debrena.
Hello. Thank you.
So cool to have you. Like, we were just having so much great conversation right before we started recording. You're like, okay, we got to start recording. It's just so cool to have a platform where I always say it's an excuse to get to know, successful Black women better, and also record it and make it useful for the public and the audience. But that's really what today is all about. I'm sitting here with two of Debrena's books on my desk, Sacred Pampering Principles and All the Joy You Can Stand, just part of my New Year's reading. And I'm just really glad that she said yes to come and share with us today. So thank you for being here, Debrena.
I'm glad I finally made the cut, Rosetta.
No. We have to talk about this because I always tell people, like, how did I meet each of my guests? And it's so funny. Debrena and I were actually interviewed on a Blog Talk radio show 3 years ago by one of our mutual colleagues. And I was first, and then she was interviewed second, but I stayed on to listen to her interview because, it just sounded so intriguing what she was talking about, which at the time I think was sacred self-care. And so she's been on my radar for a while, and it was like our dream list of guests, and you were on there. And so I was like, oh, well, I told my team, just send her an email and, maybe we'll have her on the list, and maybe she can't do it now, but she can do it later. And you just said yes the first time. So I'm just so pumped that we were able to do this.
Absolutely. It is my honor. Truly.
Mm-hmm. Well, for those who don't know you yet, Debrena, can you just give us an overview of the work that you are doing in the world?
Oh, yes, indeed. Well, if I had to distill it down to the core underlying themes of all that I do, because as you know, I write books and I speak and I facilitate and I coach and I do trainings and retreats and events and all kinds of yummy stuff, but it really is about transformation. I'm not just about motivation. I'm not even just about inspiration. Both of those have their place, but I'm really about us literally changing the inner forms, starting with our beliefs, which are our most foundational level of inner form that we have, really transforming people from the inside out, starting with beliefs, interior, and then, of course, transforming their lives, which is their exterior. And that's what I'm passionate about, especially as it relates to Black women. I'm all about us creating and manifesting the lives that we desire and doing it with ease and grace, which is very different from the model that the Western American culture presents us with. Mm-hmm. So that really is what my work is about, transformation, so we can have life more abundantly for real.
Yes.
360 degrees of fulfillment, because that is the intention that's the divine intention. So fulfilling that divine intention.
Yes, I love that you talk about transformation, because there's so much going on that a lot of our, women in our Happy Black Woman tribe are exposed to. But, you kind of dip your foot in and you do this, but even just reading your books and, tuning into what you have to say, it's really, you can tell that you're all about really transforming the whole person, not just giving people information and education,
right,
but really going deep. So that's what I noticed right off the bat was that you go really deep. So tell us a little bit, Debrena, about how you got involved in this whole world, this industry, this work. You could have done anything with your skills and your talents and your education. What made you choose this path?
Yeah. Well, I think that there are inherent gifts and talents that each of us come to planet Earth with. And as we move through life, the cues and the clues and the kind of the fingerprints, start to show up to let us know what our calling and our mission is. And so for me, one of the ways that my gifts and talents showed up is even from elementary school, I was always the chatty talker kind of little girl, and then junior higher, and then high school, and then college. And I was always getting great grades, but there'd always be a note from my teacher, "Oh, Debrena's such a great student. No, she's a straight A student. She's an honor student, but she's so talkative." And it was treated more like she needs to curb that, or that's the only piece kind of not aligned with these really great grades that she gets. Well, really, it was my mission life work already starting to emerge. So my teacher would move me to the corner with the most quote unquote undesirable kid in the class, or the bully, or whoever, thinking there's no way little Debrena is going to be chatting with that person. Well, she was wrong, because all you got to do is ask a question, and that engages people. So I was always the chatty, talkative one. And then people started coming to me probably around junior high and saying, I have this situation, Debrena, and I just want to know what you think. And so I would share my perspective. I would give my feedback, and they would come back to me and always say, it worked, it worked, it worked. And so by the time I got to high school, enough people were coming back saying it worked, it worked, it worked. And then one day someone said, you should really think about doing this, as a profession sometime. Well, at that age, 15, 16, 17, you don't know there's something called life coach, or will be in the future, or this falls in the arena of human potential and transformation. You don't know any of that yet. So really, my mission started to manifest in just how I was engaging and relating in life with other people. And I've always been very, very curious, and was always the kid that had a lot of questions for all the adults around me. And my parents were really pretty high-profile people that exposed me to a lot of high-profile situations and events, and there's all these great people around, and my parents gave me permission to respectfully ask them questions. So I always had this little journal with me, and I'd write down the answers, like, how did you become successful? Whatever my questions were at 5th and 6th grade.
Yeah.
And so it was really when I was pregnant with my second daughter, and this was around 94, 95, when I decided I was going to start my own business. I was working in my family business at the time. And I took 3 months while I was on maternity leave to really get clear about, okay, what is this thing I bring to the world? What's the language for it? And how do I bring it that's distinct from someone else? And, kind of that architecting aspect of this journey for me, with the Post-its on the wall and the big easel paper, and, when we're in that creative laboratory space. And that's where I really zeroed in on transformation is my thing. Now, this is back in 94. So this was not on the word was motivation in 94. So transformation, calling myself a transformational speaker, like what? And so I had to think about, well, what does that mean? And how is that different? And what is the impact and all that? So that's how I kind of meandered to this work. And now, it's woven into the fabric of everything I do. So whether it's an event or retreat, or a book I'm writing, or a sacred self-care circle, or a keynote, no matter what it is, that vein of transformation is going to be in there, because my mind thinks outside the box. My mind thinks in terms of new paradigms. So that's how I came to this work.
How beautiful to hear about your journey, because I think for a lot of us, it starts when we're younger, but we ignore those signs, we ignore those patterns because it's not realistic, or there's not a name for it, or there's not a specific job description, that you can apply for. I remember when I was in college, I just all I wanted to do was write, and I really wanted to be a poet. I loved Nikki Giovanni. I went to see her every chance I could. Like, she was such an inspiration to me, and just how your words can really touch people and have an impact. And, it was a rude awakening when I went out to get a job, and there is no job called poet. There's no, you can't go out and apply for jobs as poets, but, learning how to use my writing skills for other things. And now I use that with my blog and all of that. But, a lot of people just let that go and just abandon those things. So I just love that you kind of stuck with what you knew about yourself.
Yeah. And it's never been, some people can be scary venturing out into the unnamed area or the virgin territory. And for me, it was never scary. It was always exciting. It was adventurous. It was about wonder. And my parents, God knew who to bring me through into the earth.
Yeah.
Always supported that curiosity. Never thought it was crazy or wonderful or tried to shut it down or, those kind of comments in good meaning that our parents can say to us. I never had those good intentioned but hurtful comments. It was always supported. They were always went beneath my wings. So, and they were also thought leaders and edge pushers themselves. So it was always an exciting thing to move outside of the prescribed box that most people seem to be operating inside of. And so now, new paradigms in love relationships. My last book is about new paradigms and how we relate to ourselves through this sacred self-caring consciousness. New paradigms around joy and what does that mean and how is that related to your power, which is what the second book is about. So that just seems to be the fabric I'm cut from is this new paradigm fabric, because somebody has to be the new paradigm maker and then invite other people into it. So that is part of my life assignment.
Yes.
And it's exciting. It's not scary, which is really great. It's exciting.
Yes, I can just totally tell, and I'm starting to understand. It's so cool to be able to talk to authors of books that, have been instrumental for you. And so a lot of you listening to Debrena now, you're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because if you're talking about really explaining new paradigms, it does have to come from someone who's a curious person who's willing to go there and really uncover everything that we need to know. And I know so many women listening have benefited from just the fact that you're willing to go all the way and put it out there for us. So tell us a little bit about these concepts that you really have done a lot of work on. The first one that I became aware of was the sacred self-care. I remember you talking on the interview that, you were doing on is like, you were saying something that I think is very counterintuitive to what people think. So I want to address that for a moment and then go into the other thing that you're working on now. And that is self-care is about going to get your nails and feet done, going to get your hair done and all of that. But from your perspective, sacred self-care is about more than that. Can you speak to that for a moment and see how we can really reframe?
Yeah. Well, I think it's, important to get your hair and nails done and feet, but that falls under the category of grooming.
That's what you said. That is so funny.
Or maintenance, because if you have this beautiful vessel called a body, then you are charged with maintaining and caring for it.
So that grooming is a given. When you say grooming, it's not something that's extra. It's like it's something that we're supposed to do, like cutting your fingernails. That's what it sounds like to me. It's like you gotta.
Yeah, necessary maintenance. And if you have the money and the ability to have somebody else do some of those things for you so you can chill and relax, then great. But no special applause for grooming and maintenance.
You don't get any credit for going to get your nails done, once a quarter. Okay, that's what she's saying.
Well, what's so interesting is, I wrote Sacred Pampering Principles back in 95 and 96, and it came out in 97. And I really never imagined that 20 years later, the book would still be relevant. I didn't think it would have a life cycle where 20 years later, it was still just as relevant as the first year it came out nationally. So that has been really a trip.
Yeah.
And over that 20 years, my understanding of this whole concept of sacred self-care has gotten really deepened. And when I wrote it in 95 and 96, the slant at the time, I will admit, was probably more so sounding like it was certain things you do to be good to yourself. So it was kind of at the doing and activity level and kind of shifting the doing and activity to things that are more self-revitalizing and self-renewing. So not in its entirety, but the net understanding would probably have women park at, okay, I need to do some different things. And what has happened is now it has deepened to really being a sacred self-caring woman, which is a disposition in life And it's a consciousness and a mindset that you operate from. And then as a result of that, how you relate and engage, your choices, your actions, your behaviors are very different than most other women. So now I'm taking it to the level of mindset and the level of your thinking, consciousness, and really anchoring the sacred self-caring principles there so that you're really moving through life coming from the place of being a sacred self-caring woman. And it affects your money, how you do. A sacred self-caring woman engages with money very differently. She's in her relationships very differently. She's in her woman versus in her girl, concepts I talk about in my newest book, The Love Lies. She engages with her body very differently because one of her core beliefs is that her body is a living divine temple of the Holy Spirit in the earth, not just as a mental idea, because that is biblical. 1 Corinthians tells us that, but living it, not just thinking it. So she engages with her body very differently. She engages with her spirit very differently. She engages in her friendships, so it's a completely different MO, when you are living from the place of being a sacred self-caring woman. So there's three main principles, and you could consider them like beliefs, because beliefs really become the personal truths that even our thoughts emerge out of. So there's three or four. I mean, I really could have a list of probably 12, but there's 3 or 4 main principles / beliefs that a sacred self-caring woman's life is based in. One is this notion that I am the gift. And I'll come back to that in a minute. I am the gift. Number 2 is that my body is a divine living temple of the Most High God. The address for God on the earth is Debrena Jackson Gandy and Rosetta Thurman. What an honor and a privilege. And thirdly is that joy is my compass. So my work is around joy, not necessarily happiness, and I have a distinction between the two. And then fourth, it's about managing your energy first and foremost, and then your time. And so those are kind of like the 4 cornerstone pillars of the sacred self-caring woman's belief system. And the notion of I am a gift really comes from, as many of my spiritual teachings do, comes from the Holy Bible. And there was a time several years ago now where my marriage was going through a serious breakdown, and it looked like it was headed for crash, burn, and divorce. And after 4 years of trying to save our marriage and counseling and prayer groups and reading books and wise counsel and all those things that we do when we're putting forth the effort, we were tired and had concluded, okay, we are going to go ahead and divorce and raise our kids amicably. And I was in my prayer closet boohooing because the weight of the realization was hitting me like, I'm about to be a divorce statistic. Me, Debrena Jackson Gandy, national bestselling author, world traveler, what the heck? Me, coach to other women, writer of the books. I am about to be a divorce statistic. And so I was a boohooing mess that morning. And I was upset. I was thinking about my big, huge wedding. My husband and I had this big 500-person wedding, and it ended up being in Glamour magazine, and people flew in from all over the world to come to this wedding, and here I was about to be a divorce statistic. And I'm like, well, God, what do you want me to do? Is what I shouted. I didn't consider myself asking anything. I consider myself pissed off, right, and venting. And the Holy Spirit says, well, thank you for finally asking.
Wow.
And so part of my journey, because that's where my restoration began as a wife and really beginning to understand God's divine design for covenant marriage, which I thought I understood and then realized I did not. Part of my getting restored and clear was the Holy Spirit sent me back to Genesis and said, I want you to read the creation sequence. The sequence matters. So I get out my journal. Okay, first it was the creatures, in terms of the living creatures. Okay, it was the creatures of the sea. Okay, all the amphibians and then the reptiles. And then the creatures of the air, okay, the birds, the winged creatures, the bats and whatever else, then the land animals, which often is the mammals, and then man. And God said, where did I place woman in the creation sequence? I said, we were the final creation. He said, Dad, did I create any living things after you? No. So that means that everything that existed in the earth before I made you, the crescendo, the crowning glory of everything I created in the earth, you are a gift to everything that existed before you got here, the final apex. And that includes you were a gift to man. And I mean, I probably fell back in my closet. I was like, oh my God. And he says, you have had incorrect interpretation shared with you because it's been positioned as if woman, because she was created from man, that she is inferior,
right,
and that is an inaccurate teeing up of that. So now I need you to understand. I need you to open your eyes because it's already there in my book. I just needed you to go back and see and realize the sequence matters. You are the gift. Woo! Okay, I'm getting chills right now as I say this, because it changed everything. And that was just one of many things that was revealed to me over the next 90-day period where all these powerful downloads came that are in the book. And so the Holy Spirit says, women don't get they're the gift. They haven't been acting like it. They haven't been thinking like it. They hadn't been behaving like it. I need you to get it. And I need you to remind women they are the gift. And when you all remember you're the gift, which is the truth of who you are, I'm letting you know as the creator, my sequence was very intentional and purposeful, then everything will shift in the earth. Everything.
Yes.
And including your marriage, daughter, and including families and communities and, and so that is one of the very first tenets of a sacred self-caring woman's consciousness is I am the gift, not as a affirmation, not as a mantra, but as an embodied truth.
Right.
And now, does it take a while to get to that? We both know. Heck yeah.
Yep.
So there you go. I am the gift. My body is a divine living temple. Joy is my compass and my natural inner state. And managing my energy is my first commitment, not time. Time is the second commitment. So that, just those 4 cornerstones, and there's other kind of supporting ones and all that, but just those 4 will change your life.
Those are powerful. And I hope that you guys have been taking notes because there's so much that Debrena has shared. Just to, pause, and if you need to, go back, rewind, listen, and take your notes. But even just the first one, Debrena, if we took that into 2017, that I am a gift, that could transform so much. And what I love about that, I am the gift.
Yeah. There's a difference.
That it could transform without needing other people to transform. Because I know a lot of times when we have our conversations at our events and our meetups and everything, it's like, well, if this person would just do this, or if my husband would do this, or it's like our happiness is dependent on what other people are doing. But if we have this consciousness, it seems like so much could shift without anybody else having to do anything. It's just a mindset, like you said at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that's so interesting about relationships is we see the other person's behavior, and particularly if we're in love relationships with men, we really see their behavior crystal clear.
Oh, yeah.
But men are responding to us.
Yes.
And so what we miss is who are we being that this is the response?
Right.
Now, we often don't like the response. He doesn't do this. He won't do this. I just wish he'd. So we're really good at articulating what we're seeing that we don't like. But the piece that's been missing is you're such a powerful being. He's responding to you. So when we shift, we literally require, or it's already built into the nature of relationships, whoever we're engaging with must shift.
Yes.
If they're going to continue to engage with us.
Right.
We've been putting all this energy on trying to change other people. And the way we've been going about it, because we absolutely can change other people, but the way we've been going about it has not been working. And we conclude you can't change other people. That's another love lie that I expose in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, when we transform, not just change, because that can just be behavioral, actional differences, but when we truly transform, our energy field shifts, our magnetism shifts. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff shifts. And so therefore, anybody coming into our universe, our personal universe, if they're going to engage with us or relate with us or do business with us or be friends with us,
Mm-hmm.
they automatically are going to be shifted, or they will not continue to engage with us.
Or they won't be there anymore. Right.
Right.
I love that. So this is like the paradigm that you're talking about, the new paradigm for love in your newest book, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's pretty deep and wide, but yeah. There's 10 female love lies, false beliefs that we have had installed in our thinking and our psyche as part of our socialization process in this Western American world. And those beliefs are very anti-relationship and anti-love.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I just love that the bridge that you made between the sacred self-care principles and the new paradigm for love. They're so connected, and I think for so many of us, they're separate. There's how I am, and then there's how that person is. And I wonder if for this episode, it's like you guys are getting a 2-for-1 because you got the sacred self-care principles that you can take into 2017, but also we could talk about what's something that you think we should let go. Like what are, some of the love lies we should let go of for 2017 that can have us be, even more successful in our relationships.
Right. Well, I was given after that time in my prayer closet where the Holy Spirit had me go back and started giving me some revelations about some things, and I chronicled all of them.
Mm-hmm.
As part of that 90 days of download was also these 25 female love lies and then 25 male love lies. And at the time, I was like, why are you giving me male love lies, first of all? And then what am I supposed to do with this? So in my book, The Love Lies, I deal with the first 10. So out of all those, the first 10 are already the most foundational, but I would probably say there's 2 of the female love lies that I would probably emphasize on this call. One is that self-love is optional is a love lie.
Mm.
And so much of the emphasis in our current culture is treating love as if it's a thing to be found.
Yeah.
And it's found in the other, called the one, Mr. Right, or the soulmate.
Yeah.
And I need to find him. And when I find him, I will find the love
Mm-hmm.
that I feel is out there somewhere in another person, right? And the emphasis is always on the other and not on the relationship we're already in, the one with self.
Right.
And there's no usually exploration, analysis, evaluation of, well, where am I in my relationship with self? Because that's the basis and the foundation for engaging with another self.
Yes.
And so we treat self-love as if it's completely, in the current culture, as if it's completely inconsequential. There's never conversation about it in any of these love relationship books. It's always talking about the he, the him.
Right.
And so the lie is that self-love is optional. And it absolutely is not optional. And we have to experience the force, the energy, and the phenomenon of love within our own being first. And then the behavior that's consistent with loving self before we can engage with another self and experience love in that shared space.
This is so powerful, just to anchor it for everyone listening, because I think that a lot of the women in our tribe, they think, well, I've heard this before, love yourself first, blah, 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 but I still ain't got no man, that's not really helping me, so it's like, it feels like there's this tension between what we know to be true, but then the messages that society, family, religion, whatever is sending around what should really be important. And the question I always think about is, how do we stay connected to what we know to be true? And I know you talk about your prayer closet, like at some level, we need to like block out or like remove ourselves from what's happening, from the messages coming in from the outside, and really stick to what we know to be true. Like, my life is not defined by, whether I have a man or not. And it's more about the self-love piece. How do we stay in alignment with that?
Right. Well, the thing is we hear how important self-love is, but in the actual examination of what level of self-love is existing within most of us, it's lower, much lower than we realize. So just because we know self-love is important does not mean that we're operating from a high level of self-love. And the truth of the matter, given our history in this country and the straight out torture and assault on the Black body and the Black female body, it's a freaking big deal to operate from a high level of self-love, just period. And then given the history in this land. So we talk about self-love, and when you really peel the onion back and pull the curtain back, we'd be appalled at the level that our self-love is really at. Now, there's all kinds of ways and exercises that, we could do to reveal where it really is. So one, we could just crack our heads open and plug it into an amplifier, and all of our thoughts about self be on loudspeaker for all to hear. Ay, 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 ay. You would not hear self-loving thoughts. You'd hear self-criticism and self-doubt. So we don't even have to get all that deep to get to right where we have a conflict and a contradiction with this self-love piece. So if we look at what we put in our mouths.
And be honest about it. Because you said that, we have an idea that it's higher than it really is. Oh, I know that, I take care of myself. I think I'm confident, we portray that. We go out the house, we look good. People think that we're I call it the facade of the Black woman. But to be honest with yourself, I think is to look at what are we saying to ourselves.
Yeah. And what do we put in our mouths, and what do we allow in through our gates, our eye gates? What we're looking at on screens, what we're listening to, what's entering our ear gate, what's entering our womb gate, which is our vagina in terms of intercourse and allowing men into our bodies. So, we don't have to get too deep to see, we really aren't operating at the high level of self-love we profess to be or think we are.
Yes.
So that's one of the love lies, that self-love is optional. That's a lie. And then another one that I would probably say is really important is that a man completes me. Now, the paradox of it is that we are complete beings and we're not completed by another being. Yet, we are designed with an innate desire to be in connection with other beings. So it's that, and to be in love with another being. So now there's that tension between I am complete, yet I'm wired to desire to be in connection, and even in this energy and life force called love with a man. Now, what's happened is we've gotten real twisted in the culture where our language is as if a man does complete us.
Yes.
As if we have these needs and it's his responsibility to make us happy and fulfill the needs. And that's kind of the Western American neurotic concept of love relationships. So I untangle all that because we have gotten completely confused and insane. And it ties in that a man completes me, ties into that self-love is optional. And then when you look at the creation sequence, and that woman is the final living creation, if there was anybody completing anybody, we'd be completing man. Not man completing us. So even, you know what I'm saying? So we're jacked up in our thinking, and it's showing up in how we're relating and engaging. So, so at any rate, those would probably be two. Then, for women that are married listening to the podcast, love line number 8, he should already know, is probably a really big one. And a lot of married women are experiencing unconfessed disappointment because of the love lies they didn't know they were coming into marriage with. And then the reality of you're dealing with an imperfect human being and you're an imperfect human being. And a lot of us, the fantasy glass shatters and we don't tell anybody because there's so much sadness around. Wait. This is not what I thought. So that he should already know one is a big one for married women. So those are 3 of them that I would say are pretty important, but all 10 of them really are important.
Those are so good. I mean, we can just really, I know that everyone listening is probably like, what? It's a lot to take in, because if we just work with these, so much transformation can happen. Again, not just hearing it and thinking you understand, but from what you said earlier, it's really being it. It's really putting that into action in your life, so that it's not, you don't know it until, one of my mentors says, you think you know something, but you don't know it unless you fully incorporate it into your life and it's on a consistent basis. So we can do very well with doing that for 2017. There's so much more that we could glean from you, Debrena, but I know that our time is coming to a close. Gosh, we've gone through so much today, and I know that everyone is going to want to stay in touch with you. So we went over sacred self-care principles. We went over some love lies. We'll put links to your books in the show notes, but how else can people stay in touch with you and connect and get more of your wisdom?
Yeah. Well, I'm really tickled that you all are making one of my free gifts available. Well, a gift I'm going to have as a free gift for this community, which is my ebook on womb healing. So the fabulous ladies listening to this podcast can definitely, sign up to get my free womb healing book. And that gives me a way to stay connected. They can go to my newest website called Did You Buy The Love Lies, didyoubuythelovelies.com. And I have a Bliss Network that is a free sign up for women who really want to be ushered into this new paradigm and guided into it and detoxed from the current female love lies. So they can sign up for the Bliss Network and get connected and get a free gift with my 7 juicy relationship principles. So that's probably the best way. And I love phone calls and emails. I am big on personal touch. So Debrena, Debrena, @earthlink.net, my nice short email address, and the easiest one if people want to email me as well, because I also do personal relationship coaching and success coaching and sacred self-care coaching.
Yes.
And great stuff.
Yes. So I know that so many women will take you up on that. Thank you for being so generous with not just your wisdom, but also ways that we can stay in touch and get more support, because this is just the tip of the iceberg, of what we could talk about today. We could be on here, all day long, but it just goes to show, what the possibilities are for us to transform in 2017 with ourselves and in our relationships as well.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for your time, Debrena. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited about the great world work you are doing. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Well, there you have it, ladies. Debrena Jackson Gandy giving us her wisdom, her resources, and giving us some action steps for 2017. Look, we have so many other guests who have been on the show. So if you have not listened to our previous episodes, you are missing out. Go to happyblackwoman.com/podcast and you can binge listen this week and get all caught up. Until next time, have a beautiful day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Happy Black Woman podcast. If you want all the show's notes from today's episode, go to happyblackwomanpodcast.com. Plus, we'll send you a copy of Rosetta's free life mapping workbook. We look forward to empowering you next time. And until then, do something this week that makes you happy.